Hey, everybody. My name is Trey Bolin, and we're here with Origin Stories. I love to dig in and find out how everything began for you. And I'm here with my friend Steve, and I can't wait for him to share his origin story.
Thank you, Trey. Origin stories, you'll find out, have actually been a big part of my life. So I'm really excited to be on your podcast. In just the 2 seconds about me, I created a referral networking organization in 2008 called CirrusNet. Cirrus was the Greek god of opportunity. And God has blessed me with the ability to bring people together that are like minded and like hearted that want to support their local communities and that want to grow their business. And we leverage education and connections. And Trey's just been an outstanding member on a team that I coach for the last couple of years or so. So again, it's just great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing a little bit about what you do. I'm curious about the beginnings, though. So, when did this all start? How did this all start? How did you decide that this was where you wanted to go, the direction you wanted to go?
Well, we're going to go to some beginnings before the beginnings before the beginnings. So for this podcast, I did a little digging through some boxes here at my house, and what I want to show you here. Let me get this right in center because I can see it. This is a picture right here of when I was about 5 years old, maybe 4 years old. My older brother's 4 years older than me. This is in the early 1970s. These are Halloween costumes. Spider-Man, that was me, and Batman, my brother. There we've unmasked ourselves to show the real heroes. But
I
the
love
reason I
that.
show this is because I grew up during a generation that didn't really have sophisticated graphics in movies or video games. You truly did have to rely on your imagination and creativity, and you basically fantasized most of the time,
Yeah.
pretending to be a superhero, pretending to be a fireman, pretending to be a whatever it might be. So the interesting thing about this is my brother and I were both big time comic book fans. We loved superheroes. We loved the concept of superheroes kind of saving the day. And
Yeah.
also unique to the early 70s and before that, most superheroes had some moral principles where
Hmm.
they weren't the judge and the executioner and the whole deal. They would apprehend the bad guys and then take them to law enforcement, right?
Right.
For the world to take care of. So I just thought that that was a really cool thing. And I didn't realize back then, but when I graduated college in 1992 with a degree in public relations and marketing, my older brother was starting a comic book company. He was a laid off school teacher in Livonia, and he goes, "Steve, I was just laid off, but I'm happy about it because I think I've got a great idea for a comic book company, which I've always wanted to do." And he told me about the characters he wanted to start, and I just was so on board. I'm like, "Joe, I've got a job already lined up after I graduate, but I'll moonlight with you and help you grow this thing. If it looks like it's going to become something, maybe we'll join forces." And then the next thing you know, in 1993, 94, there's my brother Joe and I. I believe that's probably from the San Diego Comic Con with Lightning Comics, the comic book company we formed. And we published millions of comic books and toys, and I got to travel the world and just meet amazing people. And then the world changed. The world
Mm.
changed from the standpoint that the cost of printing was kind of going through
Yeah.
the roof. When I was a kid, I'd get like $2 allowance, and I was
Hmm.
just charged up. I'd take that $2 and run down to the dime store and come home with a bag of comic books that thick,
Oh,
read them
yeah.
all, and save them. Well, when we were publishing comic books were $2.95 a comic compared to 25 cents a comic book.
Yeah.
So it got to be much more expensive. And then video games and graphics really started advancing. And rather than kids reading comic books and fantasizing about being the heroes themselves, they were playing role playing video games. They were doing things like that. That's where the world was heading. So
Hmm.
while we were probably one of the most independently successful publishers during the era that we were in, there wasn't enough marketplace for us to continue on.
Mm.
And it was a tough thing. You and I talked before this podcast about people that have been guests on this podcast that said having a partner was the best thing. And then others that have said having a partner was like the worst thing. Well, it's really relationship driven. So my brother and I were the greatest partners. He did all the stuff for the business I hated. I did all the stuff for the business he hated. And we trusted each other. We collaborated. We gave each other freedom to do the right things. But we had to close the business, and that was very challenging because my first wife was pregnant with our first child. We had just moved into a brand new house, like new construction, just moved in, and then my brother and I decided it was time to close the business. So, my brother and I tried a few other things. We had a small war chest of money that we had built up over the years. So we tried advertising in newspapers. Like we did a Spirit of Titanic snow globe because the movie Titanic had come out. It was really popular. We made all these snow globes overseas. We sold them through like a Franklin Mint. You clip a coupon type thing in a newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
I think out of 5,000 that we made, we sold about 100 through the newspapers. So that was a one-shot wonder that did nothing but spend money. And we ended up liquidating and selling them all to some company that probably sold them for pennies on the dollar. We tried to start other businesses, but nothing worked. My brother and I were great together, but nothing worked. So he moved to Nevada, and we decided to just kind of go our own ways and do our own thing. I went into banking at a bank in Ann Arbor. I didn't have a business idea. I didn't have an identity. I didn't have a passion or a calling to go, here's what to do next, Steve. Here's your calling. I was just still figuring myself out and just kind of in your 20s and 30s. I think most people are just on the treadmill in the rat race, and we're just turning and turning and turning and hoping we can find something. Because we're having kids, we're moving into houses, we're going through those rites of passage. But what I found is that the reason we were successful starting a comic book company was my brother's passion to start with. And then I equaled his passion. And it was a business that we ran for 8 years. It was very successful until it wasn't. So we kind of lost our identity there. We thought we could do other things, but nothing panned out. And I went to work for a bank for 5 years for security. To be sure I could take care of my family. I figured I'll figure something out while I'm there, while I'm at the bank. Have you ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
I have.
So I felt like Tim Robbins at the bank. I felt like every day I took my spoon and scooped a little scoop out of the wall of the office that I was in, hoping that eventually I would find something that would allow me to break through the bank and get back to being a business owner. So we talked about partnerships. My brother Joe and I, great partnership. So a fraternity brother of mine from Western Michigan University, we're both working at the bank in Ann Arbor, and he had a previous experience working at a mortgage company, Trey. He had the passion and wanted to start a mortgage company. I had the passion to want to get out of the bank. So I said, yes, I'll help you do this. He didn't have the credentials to be approved for a license from the state of Michigan for that. Didn't have the credit score, didn't have the net worth, didn't have a lot of things that I had. So we partnered together and started that. And I left the bank and owned a mortgage company for a number of years with him, learned how to be a referral expert in the local community. And we had a great business making lots and lots of money until we didn't anymore. What did that look like? Well, my partner and I didn't have the same synergy of bringing different things to the table that my brother and I had. And we split all the profits for the business down the middle, even though I was responsible for 80 to 90% of them. So
that can be a challenge.
Yeah. So anyways, that mortgage company didn't pan out. Our friendship became estranged. He moved to Colorado. My wife told me that divorce was imminent. And I closed the mortgage company, filed for bankruptcy.
Wow.
Had to turn 5 or 6 homes back to the bank that were all rentals because my wife and I were divorcing. There was no way to have a business relationship managing those homes together. So anyways, that was the biggest fall in my life,
Mm-hmm.
was just losing friendships, feeling alienated, feeling like an idiot. Like, how could I be so successful and then not be? What's wrong with me, right? How am I letting
Right.
people down?
Right. So
And
many times we feel like it should be a straight climb,
right,
and I feel like as business owners, we think, okay, it's just going to be like this, slow and steady up. And I really feel like it's more like this, where you're learning new things and you kind of get to the next one and then you get to the next one. And then sometimes you like crash and burn. But then right after that, I feel like usually when you do a big crash, there's like a whoosh,
yeah,
because you learn something massive during the crash, during the plot twist.
I call that breaking through a glass ceiling. And what
Yeah,
you're hearing is the glass shattering as you're moving up to the next floor. Okay.
totally. That's
Yeah.
exactly
So
it.
and I relate to that as well too. So some things happened when I closed the mortgage
Mm.
company. I had two children, son and a daughter, ages 6 and 8 approximately, and I had a passion. When I started the mortgage company, I did networking. I was a BNI member for a number of years,
So many
and
people are.
yeah, I loved it. It was a great way to learn how to leverage relationships and serve your clients in a higher
Yes.
way. And but that didn't work out either. In BNI, I actually got thrown out of BNI at the same time as
Oh,
everything
gosh.
else was happening. But
BNI reject.
I was not good enough for BNI. So,
Oh, my
anyways,
gosh.
but
That's
I was
pressure.
good. Yeah, I was good enough to start my own thing, and I had this passion to start something, a facilitated referral network
Mm.
that was different than BNI. I didn't
Yeah.
want to do the same thing BNI was doing.
Right.
They do what they do well enough. They don't need anybody
Hmm.
else doing it the same way. So I do it differently. It's a
Yeah.
facilitated referral network, but it took me a couple years to plan for that, to
Mm.
recover from the depression of all of these things happening in my life. And
Yeah.
also, the glass ceiling that shattered in my life there, Trey, was a relationship, a spiritual relationship with God.
Mm.
I didn't have that before. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted. I didn't have a relationship. I'm still not a religious person,
Mm.
but I'm a very spiritual person. I feel completely connected. I feel like I'm a spiritual person having a human journey. And, so that's been a real strength in my life, is knowing that I'm never alone, knowing
Yeah.
that, and, so I started this referral organization called CirrusNet. My first meeting, I had 40 businesses, 40 of them come to attend this preview
Whoa.
meeting of the future of referral networking and what it was going to look
Hmm.
like. And nobody bought from me. Everybody said, it's a great presentation. Sounds like a great idea, Steve, but nobody bought from me. So I'm like, okay.
Isn't that often how it goes that first time? We got this great idea and we're like, everyone's going to buy in. Everyone's going to want it. It's going to be great. And then you give your offer and then crickets.
I got the best lemonade. Come on over, right?
Right.
Uh, but
So you
yeah,
didn't let that stop you, though.
no. I mean, I got thrown out of BNI. There was another organization called Net Shui that I started with myself and 8 other people that left the BNI group I was a part of, and that was a great learning experience. But too many chiefs, not enough Indians doing it
Mm.
with them. So I gave them my shares of Net Shui and went on to start CirrusNet. But that was after learning a lot. I mean, I really dove. I knew I was capable, but I needed guidance, right? I needed
Yeah.
experts and professionals to help me develop. One of the
Mm.
people that really helped me develop the most was a gentleman named Gino Wickman. He's authored a book called Traction. He's responsible for something called the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Mm.
And I mentored with him for a year before I started CirrusNet to get all the secret sauce of what I would need to do a
Yeah.
scalable business that I could get what I
Mm.
wanted out of. Trey, I failed at the comic company, failed at the mortgage company. Why?
Yeah.
Passion,
Mm.
and where it was birthed from. So
Mm.
CirrusNet is the first business that I started that came from me, like my experiences,
Yeah.
my passion, my understanding.
Mm.
And when you have a passion and it's of you,
Hmm.
You can get punched in the face 40 times and told
Yeah.
no, and you'll get back up and go, okay, one more time. One more time. How about now? Right.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. That's the key ingredient is just when you do a business that is from you and in you, I, yes, I can separate myself and my business, but at the
Sure.
same time, I am my business. So
Yeah.
it's a
Your identity isn't founded and deeply connected to the
yes,
business, but it
no,
is your baby, so to speak.
yes, it's one of my most fun children. So I started SiriusNet, got 40 rejections, called Doug Moffat, called a number of people that were there, and I said, what can I do to get people to say yes? Can you give
Yeah.
me some feedback? That's really important to anyone listening to
Mm,
this. Please ask people for feedback and do it in a way where your ears are wide open and you're
mm.
taking notes and you can ask questions about what they ask you. Don't ever take anything personally. Don't feel like people are dumping on you. They're just trying to give you what's most obvious to them.
Right. And everyone's going to have a different vision. And I think so often we get kind of stuck in tunnel vision where we can see what our baby looks like, but other people can't see exactly the nuances that we can see. And I think it does take those times of feedback, of give and take, of saying, oh, maybe I don't know everything.
That's right. That's right. So a few people became my few yeses at SiriusNet. Launched my first team in 2008. I had a little war chest of money that I had saved up from other things in life, but didn't have any meaningful money coming
Yeah.
in at all. Nothing. I was living off a stack of money, hoping that swinging from that vine,
Yep.
eventually, the vine I want to grab onto will allow me to support myself, and I can let go of the using the savings
Hmm.
vine and start swinging from living off of revenue vine. So it
I
took
think
about
that's something super interesting that you're saying that I'm hearing that I've heard someone else say in one of my interviews was I had this pile of money that I had saved. And yes, you do take risks as a business owner, but I think so many people kind of have this false idea of like, I'm just going to jumpstart this with nothing and make a ton and it's going to just snowball from there. But like, I think that's so wise. And I wanted to point that out because I just wanted people to hear that of like, you had some revenue set aside
yeah.
to be a safety net, you know?
There was no profitability in the first year or two. And you think about it,
Yeah.
when I started SiriusNet, I was charging my clients $35 a month.
Mm,
And I think when somebody joined, there was a $95 setup fee or something. So it
mm,
wasn't much. My first end of my first year, I had 22 customers. So do the math. There's
yeah.
there's my revenue.
Hmm.
It was a slow, but I was testing things. I was
Right.
wanted to launch a group, get it to a certain point,
Hmm.
measure, ask for feedback, and then launch another group. Keep
Hmm.
doing it, but learn. Keep doing it and learn. But a few years later, had a huge accomplishment. My first team that I launched, the Brighton Wednesday 8 o'clock group, which is the team you're a part of, has gone through
Hmm.
massive evolution since it first started in 2008. This was my first group that I launched to 30 members. We all took a team photo outside the place we met at because we were so excited about our accomplishment. You
Yeah.
might see this guy in the corner up here. That's Doug Moffat. He was
Oh,
my
that's
first
awesome.
customer, and he's gone on to be a SiriusNet facilitator today because when
Yeah.
you have passion and you do
Hmm.
things in a structured way and you deliver consistently,
Hmm.
people that's important to take note.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's the beautiful thing about your story is like hearing about the successes and the ups and the downs and the not letting the down take you down and allowing for reinvention, right? That's the other thing that I love about your story that really resonates with me is that the first thing that you did is so outside of what you're doing now because I resonate with that. The first thing I did is so different from what I do right now, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible, for you to like make a 180 or a 360, and to do something totally different if you have the passion within you to do that. I think that's an awesome encouragement.
Well, and you're somebody that can fully identify with that because of your entrepreneurial
Yeah.
endeavors as well too. Yeah, but there's takeaways. There's takeaways from each business that you do that
Mm,
are adding to the sum of who you are as a person and how you look at the world and your perspective. And
mhm.
from the comic book side, I was the marketing agent for the company. I was the person securing product licenses and doing all sorts of things and interacting with the public.
Mm,
That was where I was excellent. And that was wonderful. I often play on it a little bit, Trey, that I consider myself like a referral hero, right? Like I want to help people
yes.
slay the cold lead, the cold call dragon. And, the cure for the common cold call is a referral, right? So to
It
try
is.
to help people learn how to develop their superpowers of becoming a great referral partner to others. So I still use the comic book stuff a bit psychologically.
Yes.
In serious that the mortgage company gave me the discipline because I had employees, I had processes, all sorts of things,
Mm,
gave me the ability to understand the backbone that's needed behind
mm,
a company to replicate, duplicate, and have consistent results. So those two things together, plus working with Gino, having experiences in BNI, and knowing that I actually had developed now a passion really like I get off on seeing people successful. It's just so fun for me, and
right.
it is just because I know the person. I know how hard they
Hmm.
work to get there, and I know how hard success can be. One other quick thing that I wanted to point out is that for myself, I was 38 years old when
Mm,
having a relationship with God started to become important to me. Um, and like I said, I don't consider myself a religious type person. Um, but what I've found is just such a strong bond with people who also have that faith that we're not alone, that we're not an accident,
hmm.
that we are a design, a beautiful design, and that we're just incredible beings, right? I mean, it's just what I have such a bond with people that feel that way. That when you and I first met, I remember that you had some previous experiences trying to network and
Oh,
things
yeah.
just weren't really clicking. You weren't with the right setup, the right people, the right structure. And then you were referred to me by Hope Heron, a real estate agent out of Ann Arbor. And then you and I connected. You visited a few of my teams, and there's an element of skepticism. I think a little bit just because when something doesn't work out, we've tried before. We're like, can that work? Does that work?
Right.
But you said something to me when we were talking on the phone after you visited, and we were talking about how SiriusNet could work, and you said, I'm going to pray on it, Steve. I'm going to pray on it. And I love it when I hear that because when people pray on it, they come back to me and they says, God says I should do this. So I'm going to do it. And, you know, you weren't an exception to that rule. And then a couple years later, you introduced me to this awesome gal,
I
making God
know.
number one in your business. And she's going to be a featured Referraltopia speaker. So again, this all wouldn't happen without passion and reason and purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, why it's important. If you don't have
Hmm.
those things, you will be taken out. You will be
Yeah.
taken out of your business.
Right. And I think that's so true. If the thing that you're doing is just about the money, I just don't see businesses that are solely focused on the bottom line that go very far. Maybe they make a lot of money and that's great, but there's so much more to be had from businesses than just your bank account growing. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation. It was so encouraging to hear of your ups and downs, breaking through glass ceilings, navigating the plot twists that have happened to you, sharing about your spiritual journey. And I'm so glad that I'm a part of your life and a part of what God has brought to you. I feel like He
Goosebumps.
wants to be found. He wants to be found of us. And if we're seeking him, then he will be found. That's one of my favorite scriptures. And so I just love that we're kind of bringing it all back to those core deep things that resonate so much with me. So thank you so much for sharing your heart and your passion. I'd love to help people get connected to you. So what is the best way to get connected to Steve Zyskowski?
Well, I've got a horribly difficult last name to spell, so it's a good thing it's
Yes.
on the screen. My business name is always also horribly difficult to spell. It's SiriusNet, and the A's before the E. So I think
I
you just need
always
to,
get it wrong. I'm always like Caesar net. Like, no,
I've
it's
heard
not a salad.
SiriusNet, SeizureNet, you name it, I've heard it all. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. The SiriusNet website has a way to connect with me. I love meeting new people, so don't be shy.
Awesome. Thanks so much for this great conversation. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to catching up with the next origin story next time.
Thank you,
Bye.
Trey.